ready to get started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our session, How to Predict Risk Tolerance, Human Error, and Safety Incidents. My name is Mark Walker, and I'm the Assessment Solutions Practice Leader here at Dame Leadership, and I'll be your host for today's session. Before introducing our speaker, there are a few housekeeping items. First, this session is being recorded and will be provided to all attendees and registrants. Also, we have a dedicated Q&A period at the end of our session. There is a chat function on the right-hand side of your screen. Please post any questions or comments in that section, and we'll make sure to address all items at that time. Also, for attending today's session, all the registrants and attendees will have an opportunity to have 5 free safety quotient or driver safety quotient assessments from Dame Leadership and TalentClick. I will be providing a QR code and link at the end of the session for you to receive that offer. With those details out of the way, I'd like to start by sharing our goal with assessment solutions here at Dame Leadership. Our team enables all industries to address their employee challenges and initiatives with a diverse offering of tools. These options empower teams to follow the journey of an employee from hiring to their training and development, as well as addressing organizational culture, emotional intelligence, and leadership skills. We're proud to be a certified partner of TalentClick as part of those offerings. And I have to share with you, I was first introduced to their team over a decade ago, working with some insurance risk professionals. And I was really impressed with their solutions and the outcomes that they were achieving for their clients, specifically here in Pennsylvania, working with companies like UGI and SEPTA. It's exciting to have them on today's session, as they're really the only publisher I've worked with who is truly focused and specifically focused on behavioral safety psychometrics. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce our presenter today, Allison Ford, Vice President of TalentClick Workforce Technologies. Allison brings more than 20 years of recruitment, assessment, and consulting experience to her strategic partnerships, like for those here at Dame. She also helps organizations grow and thrive, and also knows the challenges of hiring and developing a safer, productive, and more engaged workforce. We're happy to have her here today to show us how to leverage the power of safety psychometrics, again, which is a very specialized area in the world of assessments. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to our speaker, Allison Ford. Allison, at this point, I'll hand over the session to you.
Thanks, Mark, and hello, everyone. Thank you very much for having me. I enjoy the partnership with Mark very much over the years, and to be able to speak to some of the clients also working with him will be a fantastic conversation today. To dive in, let's look a little bit about who TalentClick is, just to give you confidence that you're in the right place here with a leader in psychometrics. As Mark said, we work with business leaders in over 100 countries and have our assessments translated into 25 languages. Our area of expertise is in behavioral risk and those safety psychometrics. So you may recognize some of the clients that we work with here, like SEPTA and UGI that Mark mentioned, but also working with lots of construction, manufacturing, transportation. Really, the science can be applied to any organization, any role, and it is that objective measure that is data-driven and is a fantastic piece to add to the mix of whatever your best practices are for hiring and selection, as well as employee development. Here's where we fit in then. Many, again, of these organizational processes, when you're looking at that safety and risk puzzle, can be equipment, machinery, standard operating procedures, training, etc. But where we add in a missing piece is specifically in that pre-hire stage, as well as in training and looking at the safety soft skills, if you will, for leaders and employees. What we're going to talk about today is how personality impacts safety on the job, and how our tool called Safety Quotient can help you predict who is a high-risk worker before you hire. Then interpreting safety insights when someone's applying for a job, but also how you can support the people you have then on your team, either in a worker role or safety leader role, to increase that safety culture. So first of all, a safety risk. The easiest way to understand this is really, why do people react in different ways? What are our natural default settings, our natural safety traits that lead to certain behaviors? So here's a stop sign. Imagine you're driving at night and you come to a four-way stop, no one's around. Do you stop or do you roll on through? So some people naturally stop no matter what, even when no one's watching. And others are defiant and think the rules don't apply to them. I bet you've got people on your team and you can think of them right now, those who would want to just roll on through that stop sign. Those are the kinds of people that we are trying to highlight for you and give you insights into what makes them tick. Personality is really about comfort zone. So it's our impulses, default settings, or hardwiring. So imagine if you were to sign your name in your dominant hand. It feels comfortable and you can do it with your eyes closed. You can put the pen in your other hand and try to sign. And that's like acting outside of your natural traits. The signature may work, but it may not be pretty and it may not be something that you would be comfortable doing day in, day out. And these kinds of tendencies are very resistant to change. And so we're going to talk a lot about those underlying traits and how they impact behaviors and choices on the job. These behaviors can be predicted and they can be measured. And by measuring them, it helps us have an additional tool to assess fit, both pre-hire and again post-hire, sometimes for succession planning, promotions, or performance conversations. And at the end of the day, we want to increase that quality of hire, productivity, retention, and safety culture. And in doing so, reduce the safety incidents, have you witness fewer work stoppages, equipment, property damage, and insurance costs. And typically, our organizations are able to reduce their safety incidents by about 20%. We've seen up to about 60% in some locations by having this added insight and added tool in the mix. Some of the case studies here, don't have time to dig into them too much, but again, working with large construction companies, manufacturers, um, really we do these data analysis at the end of a hiring cycle and tracking people on the job. So you can do the 5-minute safety quotient assessment before you hire someone and then report back to us. How is that person performing? How have they managed with their safety incidents or what we call counterproductive behaviors, if there have been some management headaches with this person or not. And then we correlate the traits that predicted absenteeism, near misses, injuries. And what we see for our clients is fantastic gains in both those reduction of safety incidents and also in employee turnover and the disruptions and costs that come with not hiring the right person the first time. We work as a specialist in driver research as well. And the fleet research we've done shows us that some of the traits, like someone being very distractible as a driver, these people have 6.9 times as many delays, or impulsive drivers having, over 2 times as many speeding events. So again, if you can identify people with these traits earlier on, you can hire fewer of the people who have those areas of risk and hire more people who are going to be rule following, compliant, and do a good job. The cost of incidents, I'm sure you're all aware, the return on investment can be quite exceptional when you look at the cost of injuries, costs of training, and costs of replacement paperwork, and decrease in morale and the impact it has on your brand. So, Mark, this is one of the questions you wanted to put out there to everyone. What do you think is the cause of workplace incidents? Human error, lack of training, lack of procedures, equipment? Any ideas?
Yeah. Actually, what I'd like to ask all the attendees is what do you think the percentage of human error actually is from 0 to 100%? If you had to give a number, what is the percentage of human error that actually causes workplace incidents? So while we give everybody a few seconds, Allison, I know I haven't had an opportunity to look at this, so I'll throw out there 80%. So 8 out of 10 times, I'm going to use the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, people are going to be the ones causing workplace incidents. So anybody out there would like to drop something in? Okay, we have some 90, 95% human error. Thank you so much. Oh, 95 or 85. Okay. So everyone's kind of going along with me, Allison. We're going to blame people more than not. So
Well,
85.
those are pretty good guesses. Look at that, 90% human error.
Awesome.
So still important to look at areas where there might be a lack of training or equipment failure or unclear procedures, but human error can underlie so much of what we call incident causation. In fact, our co-founders wrote a book years ago called Before It Happens. So before you hire someone, before you invest in training them, before you spend on all your equipment, etc., look at who you are putting in the role and look at that human factor that can lead to the unsafe behavior. We know from our research that 1 out of 4 workers are at a greater risk of safety incidents. So our tool helps you spot them before you hire and then coach them to be safer. We're working with a manufacturer who's given us a fantastic testimonial saying that, even in some of their remote locations where they were experiencing quite a worker shortage, they had to hire some people who perhaps had a few high risk scores, but they then knew what they were getting. It was eyed wide open, and they asked themselves, can we manage this risk? And found that the insights really helped them to spot that worker and then make a decision whether to bring them in or not. So let's go through a little bit more about how the SQ works. And as Mark said, you'll be given the opportunity to try this for yourself. It's an assessment that takes 5 to 7 minutes. It asks you 55 different questions. And from that, a report is generated that highlights the traits that we know are related to safety on the job. This is what the first page of the report looks like. On the top left, you can see a safety score. We call that the SQ score. So safety quotient is, IQ is about an intelligence quotient, or EQ is that emotional quotient. So here, the SQ safety quotient is that psychometrics for safety. And out of 100, we assign a score based on someone's results. A higher score means this person is predicted to be safer in the role. A lower score identifies them as having some high risk. And who you really want to watch for is people who score in that 0 to 25, that first quartile of people who would score high risk are the ones you want to keep a real eye on. The reports highlight the dominant traits. This person we can see is rule resistant. Their marker, the orange dot, closer to the left on that first trait about rule resistance. They also, that orange marker of theirs is on the left side, closer to anxious. At the opposite end of the spectrum is calm. And think of this as a bell curve, just like in a college class, that it's a normative assessment and the average person would score in that mid-range, right down the middle. So when someone is pinned very far to the left, they're much more likely than average to be that rule resistant or anxious. If they're on the other end, those traits are correlated with good safety behaviors. Usually, like this person we've highlighted here, is closer to patient than impatient. And we look at impulsivity and thrill seeking. And again, we look at which traits align best for the role. So the first trait is called resistant versus accommodating. And it is really about someone's reaction to rules and the degree to which someone is open to retraining, rule following, and also behavior change. So again, think of people that you've coached and managed before. You can tell them the rule and some will follow it and some won't. All of these traits are a bit of a double-edged sword. There are strengths to each trait and also some risks. So some of the strengths of someone who scores resistant is that they can actually point out areas for improvement because they can be skeptical of rules and really dig into them and see, well, that rule makes sense, but we could make a better rule. So that can be really a strength on a team. But the risk is that someone who is naturally rule resistant can ignore rules or be resistant to that retraining. On the opposite side, we have accommodating. That's compliance, really. And so the strength there is that someone would follow those rules and be quite open to retraining around rules and procedures. But the risk, again, even when you have a trait that is considered positive when it comes to safety, there are areas of risks associated to it. And so someone who is very, very compliant may blindly follow rules even when perhaps they shouldn't apply. There's an exceptional situation. They may not have the judgment that they need for that situation and fail to notice any areas for improvement. The second trait is the threshold for stress, the degree to which someone experiences that stress and pressure. So, anxious people are quick to perceive threats. That can be very positive. If you have something going wrong, they will be the first to know. It's like they have a sixth sense that alerts them quickly and have a strong sense of urgency around that. But the risk is that they may experience stress in unfamiliar situations, unexpected situations, and that may prevent them from thinking clearly or acting rationally under pressure. Someone who's very calm, the upside is that they could, manage stress more calmly for sure and think clearly and rationally in a situation, but they don't have that same natural instinct for risk, natural instinct when something is very serious and may lack urgency. So you want to know that about the people on your team so you know how to coach them. The third trait is impatient versus patient, and this is response to stress. So the first one was a reaction to stress, but here's now what does someone do with that stress? And this is really how someone experiences frustration and irritation. We know from our research with a large construction company that especially when there was a leader who was highly impatient, the strength was that this person could be quick to address negative behavior and be assertive and outspoken, but the risk was these safety leaders who are naturally impatient were sometimes easily agitated and they were perceived as unapproachable. So the workers would sometimes not go to them to question safety processes, and the entire crews had higher safety rates when the safety leader was impatient. On the other hand, having a bit more patience shows someone can be more approachable and even tempered. And the risk is really just watching that these people aren't too tolerant or lenient or avoid reporting negative behavior because they think everything's going to work out and just ride the wave instead of raising the flag of concern when they need to. Let's now talk about distractibility. And so we certainly see this in a driving context, and we have a driver safety assessment as well. But really, for anyone who is handling heavy equipment or who is in a safety sensitive role, some people need a lot of variety and stimulation, and others are naturally very focused and prefer to do things in more of a linear fashion and focus on one thing at a time. So, distractible people naturally can shift attention and accommodate new stimuli really well, and maybe very good at multitasking. That's a strength. So it's important to look at the risks for distractibility when you're deciding what role someone could fit into. So people who are distractible can struggle with focusing. So if they're on an assembly line, for instance, they may lose focus. We worked with one large warehouse where one individual was having a string of safety incidents, and the managers were really unsure what to do because this person was well liked, and so they wanted to understand how they could better position them within the team to keep the culture strong and not lose this person, but they had to take them out of the heavy equipment role they were in. We suggested putting them in a dispatch role, and they have thrived in that role because of the multitasking and the variety that was there. So again, that job fit can really be looked at here. Focused people can focus for long times in highly repetitive tasks, And can also the risk be perhaps feeling overwhelmed if there were multiple demands, and managers need to be aware of that. We all know people who are impulsive and people who are cautious, and this is really what we call the degree of consideration. So how does someone consider consequences before acting? How do they look at risks before making decisions? The upside, the strength really of being impulsive is that some people can quickly decide and take action. And sometimes that is required, especially in situations that require that fast action. Impulsive people are often very confident in their capabilities, but the risk is they might be overconfident and overestimate what they're able to do. Like, I've got this, let's just do it. Let's jump in, we can do it. And that may underestimate the consequences. The other side of the spectrum, on the right-hand side of the report, is cautious. So cautious people carefully evaluate situations and tend to be more realistic on what their limitations may be. Interestingly, they can sometimes underestimate their capabilities, and so that can limit them in how much they would take on in a role. And this tends to slow them down. Being cautious sometimes means people don't act as quickly as needed. Again, to be aware that that is someone's natural state is important when you're doing safety training, so you can encourage them to use their judgment and act quickly when they need to. Thrill-seeking versus apprehensive. Now, this is very interesting because it's the degree to which a person would avoid uncertainty and risk. I find this interesting and often ask people what they do for hobbies. And you'll hear everything from I'm in a weekly bowling league to I skydive. And so people who are naturally thrill-seeking tend to look for those activities that have that adrenaline rush. And some roles do require an element of thrill seeking. I mean, you can see in the image here, if people are working at heights, to be thrill seeking. We work with a lot of transit agencies, and people have to have a certain piece of thrill seeking to want to get behind such a large piece of equipment and take people down the road. And so looking at the strengths of thrill seeking is people can often enjoy some high risk tasks and be comfortable in the unfamiliar experience, but they may take unnecessary risks and even be dangerous really when they get restless or bored. People who are apprehensive, they'll avoid unnecessary risks, and avoid dangerous situations, which can be very good in safety sensitive roles. But they may also avoid unfamiliar situations and have difficulty when they are in a situation where there are some unavoidable risks that must be taken to get the job done. So we've talked first of all about how to use these assessments pre-hire, where you would give someone the 5-minute assessment, receive their report, look at their safety score out of 100, and especially those low scores, pay attention to that because they are the people who are more likely to take risks on the job and be less safe, really, in a safety sensitive environment. But don't stop there. Once you use that insight to help with your hiring, alongside your other best practices, you want to still be doing your interviews and look at present tense, and you want to do your background checks and look at their experience, which helps you have insight in the past. This predictive analytics fills in that future behavior of how someone is likely to act in the future. So with all these tools, then you make your decisions, you bring someone on board. Don't stop there. Use these insights to develop and train both your workers and your management teams. And really, what you're able to do is then personalize the onboarding of someone. If someone is highly anxious, work hard to put them at ease. If someone needs a bit more help, just learning how to get started, we know that it's important to do that in the early days. And the last bullet point about allocating certain tasks based on traits. We gave you the example of the person who was a real success in dispatch. So this may give you a little bit more of a peek beneath the waterline as to what's really going on for someone, and help you choose to put the right person in the right role the first time. Then these insights can help you get the most out of that worker and increase productivity, increase profitability by just understanding the makeup of your crew and how to facilitate those safe behaviors on the job. So we're not talking about changing someone's personality, but we're saying when someone has what we call this safety self-awareness and they understand their own blind spots and gaps in a better way, they can make different choices on the job. So an example here would be if you have someone who is highly rule resistant, then they need extra time to adapt to change. And it will be worth your while to communicate the why behind the rules. And sometimes rule resistant people can be the best champions for those rules once they understand. And I would suggest coaching and managing someone who is naturally rule resistant to monitor them closely for compliance. Whereas if you had someone who was accommodating, you would coach and manage them in a different way, maybe checking in on them regarding asking them to, evaluate some rules as they go along and think about ways to make things better, because naturally they would blindly follow the rules and not make some of those suggestions for improvement if that's appropriate for the role they're in. Each of the reports offer insights on questions in an interview you can ask to probe into specific blind spots and areas of risk, and also coaching tips that can be a preview of what it would be like to manage someone and how we suggest coaching them for maximum performance. Some of our pages can be generated in the reports to even be a worksheet. And this is something that can be done post-incident or in a really proactive manner. These safety self-awareness behavior improvements really achieve a safer workplace. And we've got some fantastic case studies around how these incidents have been reduced by, as I say, on average about 20%. But we've seen some of our organizations almost eliminate safety incidents in one or two locations. The e-learning course that is paired with this it's a 1-hour course that people can do on demand at their own pace. And it's fantastic. It's very unique with a dynamic learning ability where people key in their own results from their report, and the course content adapts to coach them specifically on their own areas of risk. At the end, there's a quiz and an action plan generated. And this is, again, something that's very scalable even for large workforces. We've got 2 levels of this course for frontline workers called Building Safety Self-Awareness, and then also one for Managing Safety Self-Awareness at that more safety leadership level. So, Mark, here's where I hand this back to you, where we're
Yeah,
happy
yeah.
to be able to get people to try it on their own, either the safety quotient or the driver safety quotient. We're open to both.
Absolutely. And yeah, I was going to say thank you for that, Allison. Before moving on, definitely want to remind all of our attendees that as a viewer and attending today's session, that you do have the offer of taking 5 free safety quotient assessments at no cost. Just so you're all aware, it is a $75 US dollar value to take these assessments. And not only do you get the safety quotient, you also get the driver safety quotient and all the report versions that Allison was just touching base on that come along with that. So I want to give you a few moments to scan the code. Also, I'm posting the link in the chat box. So if you'd like to just click on that link or copy and paste that link into your URL, you'll be able to walk through that process to go ahead and take advantage of that offer. And the offer is valid through the month of September. So if you are someone who's actually watching this recording at this point, definitely scan the QR code and take advantage of that. And also know that I'm here to assist when you walk through that process, and when those reports come back, we can review them together. But while I give you a few moments, I do have to say, Allison, walking through each one of those scales is very helpful because I obviously recognize pieces about myself. I will be transparent and share with everybody on here that I do score high on thrill seeking. So that additional dive into thrill seeking was very helpful for me. But one thing that we always work for here too at Dame with our clients, and many of them listening will know, that we always like to look at this as additional data points, right?
Mhm.
How can we help make a good decision, not just for ourselves as employers, but for the potential new employee, but also how to help coach individuals to become, safer, better versions of themselves when they're at work, and even more successful. So that was extremely helpful in breaking down each one of those scales for us. So thank you.
Oh, thanks, Mark. That's great. When people try this on their own, from the 5-minute assessment,
Hmm.
that it's about 55 questions, we can generate 5 different reports, and so you'd be able to provide people with the employer report that is for that employer's eyes view to assess someone for pre-hire, but also some of those participant and coaching reports that can be used as a conversation guide with a worker, or even for safety leaders. We do have one specifically for safety leaders to become aware on how to understand their traits to become better safety leaders.
Absolutely. Well, at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to head into our question and answer time period. I'm going to kind of get us back on the screen, Allison, for everybody. And for our attendees, please feel free to post some questions in the chat box. Like I said, Allison's gone through some great information here, but I know we have some questions that were emailed prior to the session that I kind of like to throw out there to start the ball rolling. And I know one conversation I've had with many clients who've signed up for this session today is the challenges that they're having with finding new hires. I know you touched a little bit on that high risk candidate, the one who scores 25 or less.
Mhm.
But what do we do if we find someone is high risk and we really feel that we need to hire them because we have no other viable candidate?
Yeah, that's a question we get from our clients, as I had mentioned before, especially if they're in a remote location where they don't always have an abundance of candidates to choose from. Sometimes they do need to hire someone with identified areas of risk. And yet, then the approach they take is reviewing the predictive analytics carefully so that managers ask themselves, can I manage this level of risk? And what do I need to watch for? And how can I coach them in a personalized way to minimize the chances that they're going to be having some accidents, incidents, or property damage? So you're right that it is a tool to help have more data on who you're bringing in, and then to be more aware of right from day one how to monitor, watch, and coach that person to reduce the chances that risks will be taken by that person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always a challenge, and we want to make sure that we just have enough
Yeah,
information that if we do have to move forward, we can help that individual.
that's right.
Um, so, one thing that came up earlier in the conversation, I'll go ahead and address this. And one question that was asked prior to the session was about the validity of science and what does that actually mean. I did get asked because I obviously spoke about this before. TalentClick is one of the only organizations I know that has actually purely focused on behavioral safety psychometrics, and which is why it's such a huge value to companies that actually have a safety culture. There are many ways, I shouldn't say many, there's a handful of ways to
Mhm.
validate assessments such as safety quotient and driver safety quotient. One of the things that I do here at Dame Leadership is make sure that I review all the technical manuals. How did the test get validated? What type of outcomes are predicted from this type of assessment? And what environments are they most useful for? So, as an attendee or as a listener, please know that that is my role here at Damon. I've taken care of that, and TalentClick has provided me with all their technical manuals, their case studies, and the way that they actually did validate their assessments, especially in those safety cultures. One thing you brought up earlier, and I want to mention to all of you listening and attending today, is those case studies. Another thing that I've gotten involved here with our clients is actually working on those case studies to make sure that safety quotient is helping with those predictive outcomes that we're talking about today. So just know that that is not something you'd be left alone to study. We are here to do that with you here at Dame Leadership and TalentClick. And we would definitely want to talk to you about that as you start considering this program at the very beginning. So that question out of the way, I will ask they about languages, right? So we
Mm.
have a lot of clients who actually have candidates who don't all speak English. So their generalized question here is, what other languages do you offer?
Great question. Well, we do offer the assessment in over 25 different languages, and it's really up to each organization to decide how they want to configure the safety quotient questionnaire.
Hmm.
It is something where you could say, our job applicants are welcome to choose to do the safety quotient in whatever language they are most comfortable in, and we would like the reports to be generated in English. That's very possible. The participant who's doing the survey then just clicks on the top right of the survey to start and can choose Spanish or French or Punjabi or Russian, whatever is really the language of choice, they can select that. Other times we have organizations that say, in this location, I would like a link that just defaults to the questionnaire in Spanish. And could you generate the outcome of the reports to be in Spanish as well for some of our locations in Latin America? And absolutely, we can code and configure the assessments to do that as well. Our platform is available in 3 languages, meaning if you come to our platform to view your reports, or as the account administrator to run some advanced analytics on your safety data, you can do that in English, Spanish, or French.
Wow. I have to say, Allison, I think you're the only publisher I work with that has that many options, right? So
I like hearing that, Mark. Thanks.
thank you. So in regards to the driver safety quotient,
Mhm.
you mentioned that. What is that specifically? How does it differ from safety quotient?
The driver safety quotient is really a subset of safety quotient
Mm.
specific to driver roles. So the science is the same. It measures the same traits that we know are related to safety behaviors. However, the reports are written in a driver context. So the suggested interview questions would be, give me an example of a time when you felt a driving rule didn't apply to you, or when you had to make a decision on the road with adverse weather conditions and change your driving behavior because of that. Give me examples. And so it is in a driver context, as are the coaching tips specifically for those in driving roles. So that could be driving some heavy equipment, could be a forklift in a warehouse, or it could be driving a bus. Like you say, we have lots of transit clients, or being a long haul driver for some of the logistics companies we work with. Yeah.
Okay, and then I think I have one last question that I'll help answer with you, Allison, and it's really about what are the steps to implementing SQ, a safety quotient.
Mm.
So, our clients are used to working with myself and Allison Tyndall, another Allison on our team here at Dame Leadership. So, by all means, please reach out to us and talk to us about it. But if you'd like to talk a little bit about what you see as the standard steps to implementing safety quotient, Allison, that would be great.
It's really quite easy to get started, and we get good feedback on ease of use of the tool. So training is usually only 1 hour, and people can be up and running with confidence on how to administer the assessments and also interpret them for making hiring choices or coaching decisions. So training of 1 hour, but to be set up with an account and have the links to start with safety quotient usually takes just 2 or 3 business days. So it's really a very quick turnaround.
Wonderful. Well, I think at this point, Allison, we actually have answered all the questions that were given to me prior to the session, or ones that I had for you. So thank you for that. Also, I really want to say again, thank you for going through all this information. It's really been very valuable to us, especially for our clients and the ones who attended and registered for the event, being so focused on safety culture. It's really important for us to know the tools that are out there, such as safety quotient and driver safety quotient, and how we can actually improve our safety culture. So thank you. This information has been fantastic, and we truly appreciate it.
You're most welcome. Thank you again for having me here, and I'm happy to help and answer any other questions that may come up after the session here today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Allison. And thank you to all of you who have attended today and those of you who may be watching the recording. Please remember, you do have the opportunity to take advantage of those 5 free assessments in the month of September. And if you do have any questions, please reach out to myself or Allison Tyndall here at Dame Leadership. So thank you all very much and have a great day.